Welcome back subscribers and hello YouTube viewers. On this occasion we're off to the Queenscliff Fort. The Queenscliff Fort is situated in the coastal township of Queenscliff, Victoria, Australia, 31 kilometres or 19.3 miles southeast of the regional city of Geelong and 105 kilometres or 65.2 miles southwest of the state capital, Melbourne. Fort Queenscliff dates back to the 1860s and was enlarged in the 1870s and 80s. It was the headquarters of a chain of forts around the heads of Port Phillip Bay. This keep, a keep meaning a fortified tower, was built at Fort Queenscliff in 1882. The works were designed by the Public Works Department of Victoria along the lines recommended for fortifications by British military engineers. The Fort Queenscliff Keep is built at the corner of a complex where two walls surrounding the fort complex meet, formerly a ditch or dry moat extended at the base of the wall in order to provide further security to the fort. The Fort Queenscliff Keep is built of brick, and the Public Works drawings show that the walls to be almost 5 feet or 1.5 metres thick in places. Now, what I did find surprising was just some basic sort of research was the reason for this fort to be built in the first place and the false flag for a false invasion. As noted, the fort was built in 1862 to defend the entrance of Port Phillip off the back of a rising tension between the English and Russian empires. Russian merchant vessels and warships frequently anchored near Australian shores to purchase provisions and rest up. Australia at the time was still a British colony. With ships on their doorsteps and tensions rising, public paranoia ensued. From the period of 1840 to 1880, many Australian newspapers falsely reported, still happening today I guess, instances of Russian invasions of the colonies of Australia. Pressure on the colonies by the general public to establish coastline defences was an all-time high. The construction of Fort Queenscliff began after a lengthy public outcry after the fear was created. In 1884, it was revealed that during the 1870s, Russia had formally written out a plan that should war break out with the British Empire, a series of raids were to take place against Australian ports to mitigate any threats. Some historians have noted that the Victorian gold rush was occurring during the same time as these tensions, but were proven irrelevant and speculative for the reason for Russia's interest in the ports of Victoria. The tensions between the British and Russian empires eventually passed, and by the turn of the 1900s, the Russian Empire was considered friendly to the newly unified Australia. Today, the Australian coastline has forts not too dissimilar to Fort Queenscliff up and down the eastern seaboard, left over from the war that never happened. By 1886, Port Phillip was one of the most heavily fortified ports in the southern hemisphere. Over the next 50 years, the bay forts were manned, and both Fort Nepean and Fort Queenscliff were fully operational during both world wars. Also worth noting that the first Allied shots of World War I were fired when a gun at Fort Nepean fired across the bow of a German freighter called Phillip as she was attempting to escape to sea. However, the order of fire came from Fort Queenscliff. The same gun with a different barrel also fired the first Allied shot of World War II. By 1946, coastal artillery was outmoded and the fort became home of the Army Command and Staff College. Later, 3 service staff colleges were combined into the Australian Defence College in Canberra. It became the base for Australia's Soldiers Career Management Agency in 2001. Fort Queenscliff has been classified by the National Trust and entered the Register of the National Estate. And finally, all the information I've just provided, including the old footage, can be seen in the description below. There are a few links there that you can click on just to verify what's been said or what you've seen. So without further ado, let's check out the sights and sounds of Queenscliff Fort.
There's a hole in the back. You can put things in. Benji, can we load? Get down.
Now, just to jump in here, I'm sure people have experienced a situation which I'm about to describe. You go to a location, be it a petrol station, getting some food, or going in to see a museum, and you grab your right cheek bottom to discover something is missing. And yes, I forgot to bring my wallet. So unfortunately, I didn't get to go in here. And look, they do have tour groups at 11 a.m. and 1:45 p.m. Get there sort of 10 to 15 minutes early from what the lady told me. But unfortunately, I forgot to bring my wallet, and I actually had to race back to the car to make sure I had some petrol to get back to Melbourne, which I did. So without further ado, and the silly thing and the silly mistake that I made, please enjoy the aerial view at least. So here we are nearing the end of this video or presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, by all means, click on that like button or that thumbs up icon, and please consider subscribing. Subscribing really doesn't cost you 1 cent, and it helps out the channel immensely. But most importantly, stay safe, commute safe, And always remember to bring your wallet or your purse.